Why are we not allowed to be convinced of something anymore? I'm just talking about worldviews in general, and kind of the state of modern first world societies. Why are we not allowed to be convinced of something? Why is this postmodern state of relativism of like, oh, whatever is good for you, whatever makes you happy, whatever you feel is right? What happened to objectivity? What happened to the actual pursuit of truth? I've just been thinking about that recently because I hear a lot too, oh, these Christians, they can't stop preaching. They're preaching to me. When in reality, it's like preaching the word shouldn't have such a negative connotation, but for some reason now it does, because when you're like preaching to somebody who's not believing, it's like you're from a position on high, patronizing and talking down to them. When in reality, it's not really patronizing. Preaching is just another way of saying like sharing your worldview. That's basically what it is. And I don't just think Jesus is real and he's God because I've been brainwashed. I didn't grow up Christian, right? I grew up an atheist for 17 years. And then I had spiritual encounters with Jesus. I had prayers answered. You know, these things happen that impacted my life in such a way where I had no choice but to look into Jesus and see if he was the truth or not. So I find it extremely interesting when people are like, oh, stop preaching your worldview, or like, stop trying to convert me, or basically people are just so taken aback when you're actually convicted and convinced of something. It's almost like this terrifying idea of like, I've totally been brainwashed and I've like given my life to this thing. It's like, dude, don't you realize that we've all given our lives to something? Don't you realize we all believe in something whether or not you know it? And that's the crazy thing. Why are we not allowed to be convinced of things anymore? I'm convinced that Jesus is real. I believe that the Bible is miraculously inspired. Now, why I'm bringing this up is the fact that, like, I don't just believe in God. Like, Christians don't just believe in God because we've been brainwashed or raised that way. I don't like when people say, like, oh, I always grew up with it. Oh, my parents always did it and I always went to church. It's like, can you defend your faith? Now, the real question is, like, I don't care who you are. If you're an atheist, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Taoist, Confucianist, right? I don't care what you are. A nihilist. I don't care. But can you defend your worldview? Are you actually convinced that your worldview is true? Or not like, oh, it's right for me. Oh, it's right for me. I mean, like, are you convinced? Are you convinced that you are 100% right? Heck, 95% right. Do you live your life in a way where you are convinced you're right? And I think that if you're an atheist, you don't. Because if you're an atheist, you're convinced that nothing matters and that death is the end. So why do you attribute value to anything when you're just going to die? See, you're assigning value to things when nothing is supposed to have value in atheism or nihilism. So already every single atheist on the planet, most likely, maybe the 1% that actually like go insane, kind of like, maybe some famous atheists that went clinically insane at the like end of their careers before they died. You think that worldview, if you actually take it seriously into its logical conclusion, might be a little bit harmful to human beings that are designed with a purpose in mind? I think it's an extremely harmful idea. But I ask again, why are we not allowed to be convinced of anything? Why are people so taken aback in this postmodern, relativistic, complete nonsense society that thinks that there is no truth? Why can't we be convinced of something anymore? Like, I don't care what you're convinced of, right? But just live it out. Be honest. And if somebody tries to talk to you about their worldview, who are you to be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. It doesn't make any sense to me. Even as a Christian, if I'm just walking in the street and like some Muslim guy comes up to me and like starts telling me about his worldview, starts preaching to me, I'm not going to brush him off, right? Because I'm convinced that I'm right. And oh, God forbid I say the magic word and he's wrong. I'm convinced that I'm right and he's wrong. Nowadays, it's not talked about. You have family members and friends that are atheists, agnostics. Maybe they practice a different faith. They believe something different, right? And that automatically means that your worldviews are at odds. That doesn't mean to stop loving the person. It doesn't mean to stop treating them with kindness. But you have to acknowledge that your worldviews are at odds with each other. And how you see the world from a spiritual and, entire source of reality perspective, that's a big deal. I just find it extremely alarming that we've reached a point where being convinced of something is just so shocking. Like, is it a shock to atheists and agnostics and Muslims and whoever else that I'm a Christian? Is it really shocking to see that I myself did my own research, had spiritual experiences, and I am convinced that Jesus is the one way, the one truth, the one life, and he's the only way to heaven? That's a shocking idea to a lot of people. And for some reason, people think that idea is dangerous. But in reality, the people that say like, oh, we all worship the same thing, or like, oh, whatever's right for you, we're all going to heaven. First of all, those statements are both incredibly arrogant. And I would say, how do you know? How do you know we all worship the same thing? Oh, really? Please tell me how you're so enlightened. I'd love to know how you're so spiritually enlightened. On the other hand, oh, we're all going to heaven. Oh, we're all good people. Or like, if you need a God to be a good person, you're not a good person. It's like, oh, so tell me how you just got this education. Tell me how you've been so enlightened as to know all these truths that, some of the smartest people on the face of the planet spent their entire lives searching for and went clinically insane doing. Please enlighten me. Everybody is convinced of something, but we're afraid to say it. We're also afraid to be accepting when other people are convinced of something. We automatically take it as like, they're forcing their worldview on me. They're forcing their religion on me. They're forcing this and that on me. They're forcing their opinion on me. Oh boy, the dreaded forcing my opinion. Like, we need to grow up as a society and start to have mature conversations. It's not preaching. It's sharing. It's discussions. I'm willing to talk with anybody. Atheist, agnostic, Muslim, whatever. I've named 1,000 of them, right? Because I'm convinced I'm right. So why am I afraid to talk to other people if I'm convinced all evidence and everything points to me being right? And that is the furthest thing from arrogance. That is simply human nature. We all desire truth. So when you brush it under the rug and say that, oh, we all believe the same thing, we all worship the same thing, tell me how you got so enlightened. But also, you're brushing the issue under the rug. You're not thinking about, how did we even get here? How does reality even exist? You're just letting it happen. Why are we not questioning these things? And if you think every religion is wrong, why? Why do you think that every religion is wrong? Why do you think that atheism is true? Why do you think that we haven't discovered the true God, the true creator? If it's not Jesus or Allah or the Tao, then what is it? How do you know that Buddha was right, the Tao is right, that Allah is right, that Muhammad is right, that Jesus is right? Tell me how you know. What evidence convinces you to the core that it's true? And if you don't have enough evidence that convinces you, maybe it's time to start getting some. You gotta wake up, because there are people out there that can defend their faith. Can you? And I don't mean faith in like Christ. I mean faith in anything. If you're an atheist, you have faith that the universe was created out of nothing. Okay, that's a fine belief. I think that's a crazy belief, because I've never seen something appear from nothing. But if you think that the universe just appeared in a big bang, tell me why you think that. Tell me why you think there wasn't somebody at the start. And I'm not saying that in a patronizing way. Genuinely, figure out why you think that. Find the evidence for why you think that. And don't be ashamed in being convinced. Be convinced of something. Seriously, stop playing into this dumb societal taboo that being convinced that something is the truth is somehow wrong. That being convinced of the truth is somehow patronizing, or you're forcing it on people, or it's a negative thing to have discussions with conflicting worldviews. There's really nothing wrong with talking to someone who disagrees with you. It's just mature. It's not like politics at the Thanksgiving dinner table. These are like real problems. We need to have real conviction and be really convinced of a truth. If you go through life thinking about the truth of the universe, the truth of how did we get here, and you're just like, oh, we'll all be fine. We'll all be fine. We're all going to heaven. And whatever happens, happens. Again, my favorite one is we all worship the same thing. Both of these beliefs are so arrogant because you're sweeping every single issue under the rug. And you're just being lazy. Challenge yourself. Challenge your own beliefs. It's important. And guess what? Once I realized this, and I'm going to be honest, it sent me into an existential crisis of like, dude, I don't know anything I don't think anything about the world. I grew up atheist, and I rejected God because I thought, like, people just, like, wanted to cope with the fact that they're gonna die and nothing happens after you die and that life is meaningless. I thought that people were coping. When I reached an age where I'm like, wait a second, I'm smarter than that. I'm smarter than just to be convinced of atheism without actually having any valid argument to back it up. So I started to research, and I didn't just research Christianity, because again, I grew up atheist. I did not give a rip about what anyone else around me believed. I was ready to become a Muslim. I was ready to become a Buddhist. I was ready to become whatever. I was ready to stay atheist. I was ready to just be agnostic the rest of my life if I was convinced that the evidence pointed me there. But in all my research over the weeks, the months, spiritual experiences also helped. Prayer helped. Actually humbling myself and saying, okay, some God, if you're real, directs me to you. And I was directed right to Jesus Christ, because he is the way, the truth, and the life. And I am fully convinced of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, please, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. About why I think that I'm right, and oh boy, here it is again, and you're not right. Ooh, that hurts. It shouldn't, but it does. It's just an unspoken reality of life. Our worldviews contradict. I think I'm right, I think you're wrong. You think you're right, you think I'm wrong. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. You're convinced of something, I'm convinced of something. So get convinced of something. Stop playing around with all these arrogant beliefs of like, oh, we're all safe. The energy in the universe. Stop playing around. It's serious. Be convinced of something and be able to defend it. I'm sorry, this is much more off the cuff and a lot more like aggressive video than I'm used to. But it was just really heavy on me, because I'm starting to get driven crazy by people saying all the time, like, we're all going to the same place, or we all worship the same God. It's like, that is so arrogant and false, it's scary. You can't possibly know that. So get proof and get convinced of something. And I'm convinced that Jesus is the way. And I'm also convinced that if you're watching this video and you're anything but a Christian, I think you should seriously consider how the Bible is a miracle. And you should seriously consider Jesus's teachings. And I would apologize for trying to come across it like I'm right and you're wrong, or like trying to be patronizing. I'm definitely not trying to be patronizing. But I'm convicted enough, and I'm not afraid to say that I think I'm right as a Christian, and I think every other worldview is wrong. That's not an arrogant belief, because I'm convinced. I'm convinced. I don't just think I'm right because I said it, right? I have evidence and arguments and experiences that back it up. So if you're ever talking to somebody, it's okay to be convicted of something, but actually seek evidence and be fully convinced. It's okay to be convinced. But that's it. So rant over. Follow the call to Christ. Be safe. And God bless you.